Hello everybody and welcome to Forever Rugby on Forever Sports. For today's preview, Australia versus Argentina. 2 games left for every team in the Rugby Championship. For Argentina, well, they'd had to get off the mark, to be honest. And the one sort of positive, I think, from Argentina is that their match against New Zealand last weekend looked a lot better. Yes, they did get outclassed. However, they scored a try. They looked a lot better with ball in hand. It looked a little bit more like probably the sort of Argentina we've come to sort of know in the last couple of years. And that's an Argentina which will fight to the death, that will always be competitive, that will always sort of front up physically. There's a brilliant moment from Julio Montoya dropping a bit of South African slang against the New Zealanders. And I think that we actually haven't given enough credit to just how big the task that Argentina have been faced with, having to travel to South Africa on the back of having played very little rugby. Obviously, they had a bit of an international break in the mid season, but not a lot of training. Going all the way to South Africa, being in the bye bubble, doing that, then going all the way to Australia and doing that. And they're going to play 6 games away from home, so it has been a massive ask from this Argentina squad. But I do think that we have seen a bit of improvement. I do think there are some players who are sort of stepping up. We're starting to see a bit more sort of the Argentina of old. And I think that in a year's time, we will see a far more competitive Argentina once they can get rugby playing again across the country, once they can get proper end-of-year tours in, proper mid-year tours, and they can do sort of their preparation. But they are sticking with quite a settled side for the last sort of 2 or 3 matches. And Australia also not having made too many changes. I mean, why would you? After a brilliant performance where they completely outclassed the Springboks, on the back of that, they made a couple of tweaks, but it's much the same team. And I think it's how do you drop a lot of these players? They're just playing themselves. They're playing so well, they're becoming undroppable. And that's what you want as a coach. You want every player every week to say, listen, coach, you can drop him, but you're not dropping me. I'm playing too well. And a lot of these Australian players are like that, like Quay Cooper, something like a Michael Hooper, who's having. I mean, Michael Hooper could be sort of in line for Rugby Championship player of the tournament. And they can finish third. He's just played that well. But before we look at the size, please do smash a like on the video and subscribe to the channel as well. We will be live for this game. It will not be me. We will see some new faces across the channel. So Carl will be taking you through this match tomorrow morning. I'll be with you for Springboks versus New Zealand, the big 100th test. But in terms of the match of the teams for tomorrow, we'll start with Australia, who, as I said, haven't changed too much, but there's a very big name on the bench. James O'Connor makes his return to the Australian side. But in the front row, James Slipper, Fainga, and Taniela Tupou. I mean, why would you make that change? I thought Tupou was absolutely sublime last weekend. I mean, we saw the run down the blind side, the little no-look pass. He's a phenomenal player when he plays like that. The Tongan Thor for a reason. And last weekend, we saw what we sort of been waiting to see. Well, not really waiting to see, but we haven't really seen that much of him this year so far. Not in sort of that kind of performance. But last weekend, I thought he was absolutely superb. In the second row, they've gone with Isaac Rodda and Matt Phillip. They've paid dividends to have the bigger players, to back somebody like Isaac Rodda, who brings a lot of bulk to the Australian side. And it's working for them. And there is a sort of a change though, with Leota coming in at number 6. No Lachlan Swinton this weekend. I think it's probably a good idea. I think he needs to go and sort out that horrendous tackle technique, which has got him into quite a lot of trouble over the last 2 games. But Leota is joined by Michael Hooper and Valentini, and I thought that Valentini has been growing into the games the last couple of games. I mean, Michael Hooper's been leading from the front, has been sublime. But for Valentini, it sort of hasn't been some of his best performances from the beginning of the championship. I thought he's someone who's growing into his role quite a lot. The backline is pretty much unchanged. Obviously, Reece Hodges will start ahead. No Banks this weekend after he went off injured. So it's Nick White, Quay Cooper reigniting their partnership at the 9-10 combination. Morikai Koroibete on the back of his quickfire brace last weekend. He's one of the best wings in the world, is Koroibete, and him and Kellaway. I thought Kellaway was actually very good. Made a try-saving tackle last weekend. I thought that we haven't seen much from him in attack, but on a defensive point of view, he's really stood up. In the middle, Sami Karevi will be the wrecking ball next to Len Iketal. And then off the bench, the youngster Fleti Katua, Angus Ball, Tom Robson, Darcy Swain, Pete Salmer, Tate McDermott. It's all unchanged except for the big name. James O'Connor, number 22, is back. And he's joined by Jordan Pettier on the bench as well. So obviously all these players who are sort of European-based and have been around the play and Japanese-based all sort of coming back with the removal of the Ghetto law, which is why we've seen players like Quade Cooper back in the mix. And I think it'll only do good things for Australian rugby. If we look at the Argentinian side, also not too many changes made by Mario Ledesma. Of course, he will back his captain every week in, week out. He always puts in a good performance. That is Julian Montoya, who does start this weekend. He's next to the same. It's the same pack as last weekend against New Zealand. So Facundo Gugena and Santiago Medrano are the front row next to Julian Montoya, and then you've got Mateus Elamano and Thomas Lavanini as the sort of lock forwards there. Lavanini is a very big player, very big sort of presence, very important when it comes to line out and getting your sort of set pieces sorted, which I think. It's interesting that there was a big sort of question mark over the Springbok Maul last weekend because Australia was so good to counteract that. But the weekend before, the Springboks had a lot of success through their Maul and scored 3 really more tries. So it'll be interesting to sort of see how the Pumas approach the Maul, whether they can sort of try and outfox the Australians, who tend to sort of push quite early and to try and sort of either sack it or try and sort of make sure there's no forward momentum, and they have to try and use it quite quickly. And then the loose trio of Jean-Martin Gonzalez, Marcus Kramer, and Pablo Matera. That's sort of your sort of mainstays in this Argentina side. And Pablo Matera, we remember that sort of iconic performance against New Zealand a year ago, and he will need to be one of their standout performers going forward if they are to try and compete. Gonzalo Bertrand and Santiago Carreras will continue their halfback combination there. Emiliano Bafeli and Santiago Cordero bring a lot of pace onto those wings. Santiago Chocobares and Lucio Cinti will continue their centre partnership, and then rounding off the team, it will be Jean Cruz Malia. And then on the bench, there are 2 debutants for the Argentines. So in the front row, it's the standard Santiago Sochino. But then Rodrigo Martinez gets an opportunity in the number 17 jersey, Enrique Perotte in the tight head. Then we've got Guido Petty, and then Joaquin Oviedo gets a chance there in the number 20, and then after that, the same as last weekend, Gonzalo Garcia and Domingo Miotti, but then Mateo Carreras, who we haven't seen it before, will get an opportunity off the bench as well. It's a good Argentina side. It's, I think, probably quite a tired Argentina side in terms of mentally probably quite fatigued, physically quite fatigued. They've been through everything. They've been through hell and back with the whole traveling and stuff like that. They really haven't had a good time. They haven't played at home in well over almost 2 years now. So it's been quite a mentally draining campaign for them. But hopefully they can, on the back of last weekend, which I did think was an improved performance, they can try and have a bit of a go at Australia. But Australia are just so confident after beating the Springboks, especially in such good fashion, playing such good rugby, really positive stuff, keeping the ball in play, trying to sort of run the Springboks off their feet, using that sort of home ground advantage, using the humidity, using the heat. It was a masterclass, and we know this. And if they play like that, they will get past Argentina without too much issue. Let's just hope that Argentina can pitch up and provide a decent opponent. We can see a good game this weekend. Let me know what your score predictions are down in the comments below. Smash like on the video. Do subscribe to the channel as well. My name is Steven. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll chat to you soon.